Good afternoon, everyone. Very quiet group here today so far that I've noticed. I am filling in as chair for this meeting in place of our HSAC chair, Angel Vic Lewis. She's not able to be with us today. I hope you'll keep her and her family in your thoughts and prayers right now. So I will go ahead, since it is 3 o'clock, and call the meeting to order. I know that we are still waiting for some more people, and we have a few voting items for which we'll need a quorum. So we'll deal with that when we get our quorum. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I want to remind everybody, everyone is on mute, so remind everybody to stay on mute if you're not speaking. And as always, I'm going to start with reading the goals for the Homeless Services Advisory Committee. Our goals are to finish the job of ending chronic homelessness, prevent and end veterans homelessness, prevent and end homelessness for families, youth, and children, and to set a path for ending all types of homelessness. I see more and more people coming in, so I'm continuing to welcome all of you here today. The next item on our agenda is to review the minutes from the August meeting, but your former secretary, that's me, did not have time to get those done yet. So we will not have any minutes to vote on today. I promise that we'll get those done and we can vote on them at our next meeting. So that brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is the public comment period. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment today, Ms. Ruby?
No, ma'am.
Okay. This meeting is moving right along, isn't it? So that brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is the Executive Committee Quarterly Report. Over the last month or so, we've been working on our transition plan and elections. So at this time, we do not have a quarterly report from the Executive Committee. We will defer that until our next time comes around in three meetings from now, I think. We rotate the Executive Committee, Performance Management, and Policy and Planning Committees quarterly reports. So when our next time comes around, I promise we'll have a report for you. So we are 2 minutes into this meeting, and according to our agenda, we have already taken care of the first 20 minutes of agenda items. Ms. Ruby, do we have a quorum yet?
Not yet.
Okay, because the next items on the agenda are for require a vote, and we will need a quorum for that. So are we able to do the presentation on the ERAP update yet, or do we need to hold off on that?
I think we're gonna have to hold off on the ERAP update, as Reginald has a 3 o'clock meeting and was planning to join at about 3:30, 3:45 when we were anticipating to be ready. I can text him and see if he can join sooner if we're still not near a quorum yet.
Okay, because there's really not much else we can do except that until we get a quorum.
We could.
I can do item number 9, but that's about the only other informational thing on the agenda.
Yeah. How short are we of a quorum, Ruby?
I think we just reached it.
Did we? Yay. Woohoo.
There we go.
Well, moving right along then, we will continue on with item number 5, which is the state ESG recommendation approval. The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services informed Durham in July that we're eligible to apply for up to $171,504 in state emergency solutions grants funds, including a minimum of $68,202 that must be used for housing stabilization activities and a maximum of $102,902 that may be used for emergency services. An evaluation scoring committee evaluated and scored applications from 3 organizations and presented funding recommendations to the Performance Management Committee. A representative of the Performance Management Committee will present its funding recommendations to the HSAC for discussion and final approval. The state ESG regional application and associated project applications are due to the state by October 1st. So who is going to be speaking for performance management today? Anyone?
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute. This is Tracy Giandino. Sorry about that delay. I'll be sharing the results of the subcommittee for the state ESG scoring committee and performance management. There was an eligibility of $174,504 in the 2021 state ESG funds with a maximum of $102,903,000 allocated to ESG emergency services activities and a minimum of $68,602 allocated to housing stabilization activities. The Performance Management Committee met on September 9th and approved recommendations for the ESG scoring committee. Members included Jonathan Crooms, Chris Toynes, Sharita McCullers, as well as myself, and along with consultation from the Community Development Department staff, Lloyd Schmeidler and Colin Davis. What was approved for, let's see. Families Moving Forward was approved for funding for emergency shelter operations and services at $51,938. Housing for New Hope was approved for rapid rehousing activities at $93,816. And Open Table Ministries was approved for street outreach services for emergency services for $25,750. Based on the percentage of allocation out of the ESG funds, those were the 3 organizations that were approved for funding. The funding allocation, the scoring committee agreed in terms of the consensus around Open Tables Ministries 2 applications for one of those projects to be approved versus both projects to be approved. And the average score of the remaining projects, Housing for New Hope, rapid rehousing, and the other ones were relatively equal at 86.25% and 85.2%. And the committee agreed to fully fund one of Open Tables Ministry Street Outreach Project and awarding the remaining to Housing for New Hope for their rapid rehousing project. So the Durham's regional application associated with the project applications are due to the state on October 1st of 2021, and the state will release its funding awards by December 11, 2021. And all contracts with organizations will be for project activities in the calendar year of 2022. And this concludes my report out for this subcommittee.
Thank you, Tracy. I will open the floor from HSAC members for any questions at this time.
This is Ryan Furman. I just wanted to clarify that I'm going to recuse myself from this vote given my prior relationship with Families Moving Forward.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions for Performance Management Committee about their recommendations?
I would just point out if anybody had trouble following all of the details there, they're covered in the memo that was sent out to the HSAC last Friday relatively clearly, if you want to review them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew, for mentioning that. I forgot it was up for pre-review prior to the meeting.
Okay. If there are no questions or comments about the presentation, the recommendations as they stand, I will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
A motion for approval by Drew, and I need a second.
Second.
Ms. Ebony Thomas has seconded. So I will ask that you place your vote in the chat. Yes, if you agree, no, if you approve, or abstain if you need to abstain. Looks like I'm seeing yeses and all yeses except for one abstention. So is that enough votes, Ruby, to approve for the quorum? Looks like it. Trying to count from the chat. That's challenging, but it's okay. So it looks like
You're good.
great, thank you. So the motion is carried. We will accept the recommendations of the Performance Management Committee for the State Emergency Solutions Grant funding. All right, our next item on the agenda is Tarita here? Has she made it yet?
I've made it.
Awesome, yay. So our next item on the agenda is for recommendations from the Policy and Planning Committee for units to be set aside or preferenced at the 300 and 500 block of Main Street for households exiting homelessness. So I will ask Sharita to present this to us.
Hello, everybody. Give me just a second. I was trying to pull the formal motion up. But what I will definitely say is that the Policy and Planning subcommittee has been working diligently on this matter, try to make sure that we were well informed and educated about the 300 and 500 block, the units that were available, the true number of units that were available. There was, concern from the committee about, not wanting to impact other people in our community who we understand are facing the same issues that our clients are, and that's affordability. But we were able to, in our meeting on Monday, come to a resolution about an ask. And what we are asking is for the for HSAC to vote on and approve the recommendation from Policy and Planning, which is to ask that 50% of the units, the 58 units, be set aside for people who are homeless, are moving on from permanent supportive housing, or who are rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing clients. I am still trying to find it, but that's what I remotely think that the motion was. And so we're asking at that time for the HSAC to take into consideration making a formal ask to our county commissioners, and in hopes that they will dedicate some of these units to the folks that we are serving. And I'm still trying to find the formal motion, but that was my.
Do you want me to just, this is Russ, sorry, do you want me to just post it into the chat for everybody?
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you, Russ.
Mhm.
I had it on my screen, but in all my multitask, I don't know what I did with it. So there it is. Here it is. So The policy and planning motion was to ask the county to request that the county set aside 50% of the 30% AMI units for our client population, with a mix of those being supported by rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and move on type programming. That is the request of the Policy and Planning Committee at this time. We will entertain any questions that anybody has.
Drew?
If it's helpful, I was just reviewing for my own purposes the number of affordable units in each of the developments that were currently under the current planning are aimed at 30% of AMI or under income wise. And in the 300 block, which is the one that's currently under construction, the total target number is 22. So the HSAC would be asking for 11. And in the future 500 block, the total number aimed at 30% or below of AMI is 36. So the HSAC would be asking for 18. So a total of 29 affordable units that, if the county commissioners agreed to it, would have a kind of a homeless preference attached to them. That's helpful to people.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. That helps. Any other questions? Mayor Schul?
Thank you. Does the county, Drew, have the county had previous plans for these units that are either consonant with this or at odds with it?
I'm not aware that the county, I have not been in any conversations where the county went beyond the sort of stratification of income levels in terms of the targets for those affordable units. So I think this could be open for discussion, certainly at the board level.
This is Heidi. I do expect we'll discuss this. I think it's a really important issue, and I'm on the Policy and Planning Committee and encouraged the group to bring this forward to the Board of County Commissioners so we can, grapple with it. And if it is the values of the HSAC group to make this request, then I think that's important for us to know, and really would. I, as the representative for the county commissioner on HSAC, I would welcome, advice, recommendation from you all to my colleagues and myself.
Can I make one other general point, which I think is sort of dovetailing off of what Commissioner Carter just said, which is I'm happy also to see the HSAC sort of generally speaking starting to spread its wings a little bit and feel out what its advocacy role might be. I think on some level, even if it weren't expressed clearly enough in the founding documents of the body, that's what the city and the county hope that their advisory boards will do. That's why at least part of why we gather groups of experts of various sorts into bodies like this, is to advise us. And the way bodies do that is by official communication like this. So I'm also supportive of it in a general way, although I'm not going to vote on it because I don't lobby my own bosses on questions like this.
Rita?
What I would just like to just add to that, Drew, thank you for saying that word advocacy. Is I feel like just as a person that's been a part of HSAC for a good little bit of time, but a person that is very invested in our community and the needs of our homeless residents. And I've been doing this work, here in Durham this time around 10 years, but this has been 21 years of what I have done. And I think that the more we make the needs of our clients visible, the easier it's going to be for us not to be forgotten when our county commissioners and our city council folks are making decisions. And so I think advocacy is a place where I feel like we haven't been as effective, and I look forward to in the future, and just this, with this being kind of a maybe our second big attempt, because I think our first big push was for COVID response for our homeless neighbors, to make a difference and to start a new trend of social corporate responsibility and pushing the envelope for the have-nots. As good as the arguments and the accommodations have made for those who have in Durham.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? If you raise your hand, I may not see you, so I don't mind if you speak up. Okay, we have a motion brought by the Policy and Planning Committee to request the county to set aside 50% of the 30% AMI units for our client populations, with a mix of those being supported by rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing and move on type programming. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second.
Shaisha Bell, second. So HSAC members only need to vote by typing yes in the chat, no if you disagree, or abstain if you're abstaining. Looks to me like the yeses have it. So we will make the recommendation to the board from what the motion. Oh, sorry, Drew, I missed your comment. Russ, do you want to make a comment now? We already had the vote, but I forgot. Okay, sorry, I didn't see your comment in time. Okay. All right. So in that case, this motion has passed, and we will move on to our next agenda item, which is appointment of HSAC members to standing committees. We have two standing committees, the Performance Management Committee and the Policy and Planning Committee. We have members that have rotated off, and we have two new members that HSAC needs to vote on for each of these. For Policy and Planning, we have Alicia Thompson and Drew Cummings to vote to join the Policy and Planning Committee. And for the Performance Management Committee, we have Alicia Thompson and Shay Kennard. So I would like to entertain a motion that we approve these nominations to the Policy and Planning and Performance Management subcommittees.
This is Birch. Motion to approve.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Birch. And a second?
Second, Colleen Herbert.
Thank you, Ms. Herbert. And so if you put your vote in the chat, yes if you approve, no if you do not. Looks like that motion has been approved as well. You're just moving right along here today. It is not yet 3:30, Colin, and I don't know if Reginald is ready or.
I'm here. Reginald's here. Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Greetings,
And
greetings, greetings.
Thank you. In that case, we will go ahead and turn this over to Reginald Johnson to talk about the ERAP update.
All right, well, thanks, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. Reginald Johnson, Director of the Community Development Department with the City of Durham. I think it's been a little while since I've shared before you, and it's always, though I'm here at the meetings, I don't have much to say. Thankful to having some great colleagues who handle all of the details for you, and I'm very appreciative of them. But sometimes I do need to share, and this is one of those times, and I'm glad to be here. So my purpose is to share with you an update on the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Many of you have heard about it, and so I'm going to provide a little bit of detail for you, just in a matter of probably just have about 10 slides, but just talk about the funding, a little bit about the regulations, a little bit what we're doing and what our partners at DSS are doing, and go from there and have just share that information with you. So Colin, if you don't mind putting up my slide presentation. Thank you. And we can go to the first slide, second slide, I should say. So the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, the funds are managed by the U.S. Department of the Treasury. That is important. This is not the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's not Department of Education, nor is it Department of Health and Human Services. Rarely do we get money from the Treasury Department, but this is where this program lands, and it does have some implications in terms of how it is to be outlined. You know, at the local level. Two separate ERAP appropriations with similar but not identical rules. There's ERA 1 was $25 billion under the Consolidated Appropriation Act 2021, which was enacted in December of 2020. And then there's ERA 2, which provides $21.5 billion under American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, which was enacted in March 11 of 2021. Both ERA 1 and ERA 2 have been allocated to states and to local governments with populations greater than 200,000. Next slide. So how did that land here in Durham? ERAP funding for Durham, the city of Durham received 8.4 million, and Durham County received 1.2 million. And the state of North Carolina is also granting to Durham County $9 million. Under ERA 2, the city receives 6.6 million, and the Durham County receives 985,000. And the state to Durham County for ERA 2 is, I think, undetermined right now. Next slide. So just general eligibility requirements. One or more individuals within the household has qualified for unemployment benefits or has experienced a reduction in household income, incurred significant costs, or experienced other financial hardship directly or indirectly to COVID-19 outbreak. One or more individuals within the household can demonstrate a risk of experiencing homelessness or housing instability. And the household has household income at or below 80% of the area median income, with a priority on serving households of less than 50% area median income. Next slide. ERA program regulations. ERA program regulations have evolved since the program was launched, with Treasury issuing multiple updates to the program regulations over the past 8 months. And I'm going to pause here just to share that this is significant for us who work on these programs. When we start programs, typically from the federal government, indeed the state, the rules are set when we start. The rules were set when this program started, and they have been changing ever since. And so there's almost not a week go by that something is changing while we are actually implementing. And so one of the challenges is being able to change what we're doing on the ground in real time, and present some challenges for that. The most recent changes were issued August 25th. And this update significantly changed the documentation requirements for the program, making it easier to use self-attestation to meet eligibility requirements. Next slide. So one of the things that we started when the program was announced in the city received its funding, And we knew that the county was going to receive some funding. In the instance, they did receive a smaller amount. That we knew that we at the city knew that we didn't have the infrastructure to be able to distribute the funds, but the county did through the Department of Social Services. And so one of the things that we did engage in talks with them, and we came to an agreement to for the city's funds, that the city would have an interlocal agreement with the county an amount of $8.4 million in March for DSS to administer the rental and utility assistance to tenants residing in the city. This has allowed the city and the county to operate a single program. One of the things that is also important is that the monitoring of this program and the accountability is extensive. And so there's a requirement that's so significant that the county had to engage a special software system that we actually use our administrative costs at the city to help them to pay for, to be able to purchase the software to administer this program. Next slide. One of the things that we noticed at the city and thought would be helpful is that as the county was developing this program, we knew it was going to be an online application program that, and of course this was during COVID, that we engaged 5 community partners to provide application assistance and support in effort to reach high barrier tenants. These are persons who may have technology challenges, language challenges, maybe culture challenges, or just a range of things that may inhibit them from submitting an online application. They can go to one of these community partners recognizable in the community, and persons there could and help them, whether it's providing computer access, serving as their representative with the application, helping them understand the application, and persons can go there as well as to submitting the application themselves directly. And we did have an RSP and the applicants that, the awardees that we have included Church World Service, the Community Empowerment Fund, El Centro Hispano, Healing with Care, and the Center for Homeownership and Economic Development Corporation. Next slide. So just to refresh, so we received some funding, the county received some funding. We granted our funding to the county so that they have one seamless program. And so that's what they've been administering. And so basically their county DSS serves as our subrecipient, but they're also a direct recipient, primary recipient is the term, also for their funding. So as of early September, 1,156 approved applications were approved, totaling about $5.8 million in award payments that have made from both city and county funds. 99% of the completed applications have been approved. There are about 1,500 applications in the review phase, and there are 3,700 applications in progress. That means the county is reviewing to identify incomplete or blank applications, the applications that contain no information about the applicant, the unit, or support requested. So what that means is that there are persons who started applications but haven't touched the applications, and there's follow up on that to see if what their intentions are and what their need to submit further. The county is averaging about $800,000 a week in payments. Next slide. So in terms of eviction response, DSS is working with the Sheriff's Office to receive the list of summary ejectment filings to compare it with the applicants to focus on getting those applications approved before the hearing date. In cooperation with the Chief District Judge, the DSS has placed 2 social workers in the courtroom to assist those applicants who are on the day's docket. And DSS is working with Duke Civil Justice Clinic to place a social worker at the Friday eviction clinics held at the courthouse. Next slide. So the reporting requirements, as I told you, I shared with you, is extensive. And I'm so sure you've seen a lot of news reports about how much money the North Carolina has gotten out, how much money is not going out nationwide, and how and all those types of conversations. This is a link to the website, and you'll receive this presentation. But I will just say that it has proven to be quite complex, and as the rules are changing, you have several interfaces and challenges, but we think we've been able to overcome those. And we're having, and I meet with Ben Rose every week, and his team every week. Our team meets every week to discuss the progress and the challenges and work through some of them. That's how we were in the meeting yesterday, which we meet on Tuesday afternoons. And another guidance came out while we were meeting that we had to, deal with. So, but I think overall the relationship with DSS is great, and they're doing a good job, particularly under the circumstances, because it has been proved to be a challenge. I would just say that, in the past 60 days since we started this, and believe it or not, they started with only 80 approved applications and just under $400,000. And now to go to 1,100 approvals and $5.8 million in less than 60 days for programs such as this is amazing. So I would just offer that. With that, I will conclude my presentation update and be prepared to answer some questions because I don't know, not involved in all of the details. I might not be able to answer some of the questions about applications, but I'd be glad to answer what I can.
Thank you, Reginald, for that presentation. Do we have any questions or comments for him at this time? I saw one question that Drew Cummings put in the chat about the total. So, Drew?
Yes, I would like to get back to that question. Actually, I wanted to just offer another comment. I've been reading a lot of the same news that some of you all may have read about sort of nationally, the low spend down rate for these ERAP funds. And I think, Reginald didn't change that dollars spent number into a percentage, but I think even slightly more current are the amount of the first tranche of ERAP funding, city and county, that has been spent in Durham is something like 80%. We can't get access to the second tranche until we have spent down the first tranche. So I think it, even though it will likely prove not enough to really help everybody, I think we're doing a good job, and that I think it was a good idea. I'm glad the city and the county were partnering on this, and the weekly spend rate has been going up sharply. Partly that's sort of everybody's comfort with the system, but also, predictably, with the eviction moratorium having been removed, the amount of activity by landlords is increasing, as one would expect, and so I expect that weekly spend rate may increase further. But at some point, Reginald, I did put a question in the chat from the slide where you had all of the different dollar amounts. I couldn't quite figure out what the total that we could expect in this kind of family of pots of money would add up to.
I haven't necessarily added it up. I mean, we can go back to that slide and add it up. I can tell you that it's not enough. And I want, one of the things I want to meet everybody's expectation and be clear that it's not enough. But we are going to move to be able to get it out as quickly and as expeditiously as we can. We do have application notes, and I gave you those numbers about applications that are basically still pending. Those applications with the 99% approval rate will be approved if every person's get their application information in that they need to submit. And so there is a chance that, but a lot of the funds will go to those applications that will be completed, that we already have.
Reginald, this is Tracy. It was a good presentation overall of the efforts, concerted efforts between the city and county in terms of the emergency rental assistance program. And I think the reports that I've read regarding the U.S. Treasury initiative is that a lot of states have been bogged down with a lot of regulations and trying to figure out, just programmatically how to comply and get the funds out. So I don't think we're pressed with that problem. Seems like we've made a lot of good progress, but I didn't know whether or not you knew at this, given the overview, what was like the average amount approved or the number of months of rental assistance. Has it ranged from 3 to 12 months, or do you have that data? And if you don't, that's fine. I just didn't know whether or not you had that information.
I don't have the information. It does exist. That's really more so a Department of Social Services, because they control that information. We can get it. I just don't have it. Reginald Johnson doesn't. But it does exist.
Okay. I think that would be helpful, like with some of the populations that we serve. I know it's going to vary based on individuals' needs, and given the moratorium coming to an end, it's also going to have an impact, I know, going forward before the year is over. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I would also say we are challenged with the regulations as well. We're trying to work through them, but it is very hard. As I mentioned, they're changing. And while the federal government is saying that, for example, self-attestation, we also have to be mindful that there's still internal control issues, challenges we have to work through with fraud and the possibility of fraud and what documentation you have. And, if you say you have a bill and you self-attest to it, and we have auditors that come back behind us, well, how did you pay that bill to Reginald Johnson and on what basis? Well, they just said it was $600. And so there you go.
Hi, I have a question. Can I have the floor? Helen?
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
So I put it in the chat, but I think nobody's looking. So you quoted that, I think you said 1,100 applications totaling 5.8 million have been approved. When you say approved, does that mean that money is in the hands of the landlords, or the applications are in process for that?
That means the money is going out the door. $5.8 million is the out the door money. Money's gone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. We have a few comments in the chat that I'll read. Carolyn Schultz asked, from a COC member, not on HSAC, are there thoughts on how to spread the word of this opportunity to those in need who are unaware? And Drew Cummings responded to Carolyn's question. The 5 community organizations listed on one of the slides are helping to get that word out. And I believe the city's innovation team is working on ideas to use additional community members to further spread the word. Reginald may have additional information.
No, I would say that, as always, there is a challenge to reach all sectors with 100% information. We have used, of course, the means in terms of communicating with, through media, through that we have some flyers and do a range of things that DSS has done to let people know. Does everybody, who knows know? I don't know that they do, but we're definitely working to strengthen that.
Carolyn, does that answer your question for now?
Yes, thank you. And Open Table has referred a goodly number of people, but we have not had the opportunity to help them with the application process. I was just surprised at the number of people that come to me asking to pay their rent that were unaware of the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. We appreciate you referring them.
Thank you. Terry Alaba commented that adding up the numbers from state, county, and city for first round is about 18 million. Having spent 5.8 million is about 32%. Dividing the total distributed into the total spend is about $5,000 per application. Wow.
And remember that persons, and I didn't have a slide on this, they can get, so it's a balance between rent that's in arrears and prospective rent, future rent. And there's a combination of months that sort of like a floating scale. So you can get some money for future rent, but that diminishes money you can use for arrears, or if you have money in arrears, that limits the amount of money you can have for future rent. So it's the balancing on that by the regulations.
Thank you. Sharita, did you want to ask your other question about landlords?
I just want to know, what about landlords who refuse to take the assistance? Because I've had some clients come and tell me that they have landlords that are just not refusing to even cooperate or participate in the process. If a person comes into DSS and this ends up happening to them in the middle of their ERAP process, are there other funds from somewhere else that folks can get to help them?
So that's going to be more so a DSS question that I'm not prepared to answer, whether there are additional funds. It is a challenge that landlords who do have some level of participation in the program and have elected not to. We cannot make them participate in the program. We can encourage them. We actually have focus groups and meetings with landlords to, assess whether the challenges, whether the barriers. And we've been meeting with those, some landlords to encourage them to participate in the program, but we're not able to mandate that they do.
And I would add, I heard something interesting from Janine in our DSS department who runs this program the other day that was interesting to me, which is I think in situations like that, the ERAP funds may, and this would be subject to verification, may also be to sort of help clients move into a new apartment, assuming one can be found. So it's again, it's, as Reginald did say, it's not just for arrears. So in that forward-looking version of this, there may still be some opportunity to use these funds to help those clients whose current landlords aren't interested in the program.
Thank you. I'll also note Danielle Butler wrote in the chat that Triangle Apartment Association also regularly updates their property owner operators to make them aware of the resources. It's just another way of getting the information out. Any more comments or questions about Reginald's presentation? Mayor Schul.
Thank you, Helen. I just wanted to get some clarity, Reginald, looking at what Terry wrote in the chat. Does the county yet have the state funds?
I don't think that they do. Drew may be able to speak to that, but I don't think that they have them yet.
I'm not aware that we do either. I don't think so.
And so we don't know when that's coming, or maybe Terry knows. No, Terry doesn't know.
They may have received their agreements, but there's some contingencies in there, but I don't want to speak and get ahead of myself because that's not the relationship in my part of the arrangement.
All right. I wanted to add to what Reginald said, my appreciation to the folks at County Social Services. They have staffed up. So our county folks on the call, thank you. I mean, they have staffed up, added people, done everything, pulled out all the stops to get this money out. And I have been very impressed and appreciative of it. And just to Ben and Janine and everybody at the county who's made it happen. It's a Herculean effort. And as Reginald says, it's not enough. But just to get the amount that they've gotten out and are continuing to speed it up. It's just really impressive. I want to express my appreciation.
Thank you, Mayor. And of course, usually I don't like to come behind my mayor to offer any comments, but I would like to echo what he's saying relative to DSS. I do want to be specific. One of the things that DSS had to do was to go through and purchase a software system basically just for this program. We're hoping that they can use it for other programs. That's the reason we gave part of our administrative cost that's allotted for our allocation to the county, so they could get a system that was robust enough that they had to purchase and get up and going to get this program. So that's number one. And so we appreciate them for that. And then also they have actually, in the effort to expedite this, have used funding outside of the program, other county dollars to hire people to help get temporary workers in support of this program. And so very appreciative of that as well. And so I just want to, put a fine point on that, on what the mayor was saying, that the county has definitely participated greatly and used their other resources outside of those allocated by Treasurer. Thank you.
And that's one of the things that I've always loved about working in Durham is the way people work together to get a job done. And it's just amazing to me to see the cooperation and the things that we can accomplish when we all work together. Sharita, you had another question in the chat. Did you want to discuss that?
I just wanted to know what the differences are in the pots, the city ERAP, the county ERAP, and the state ERAP. Do they all still go to the same place? It's just a different pocket of money. Is there a difference in how the funds are utilized? Because you gave us that breakdown instead of just like the general total number.
So as far as we know, the regulations apply to all of the funding. The funding comes out of Washington and lands in different places according to different formulas. That's how we get a portion, the city, and the county gets a portion. It's all coming from the same root, if you will. And then the state also gets a portion. What are they doing with their portion? They're dividing it among localities.
And maybe the way I interpreted the question was it going to all be spent the same way through the same DSS outlet?
Yes,
And
the
I
answer
think
to
the
that would
answer,
be yes. The answer is
too,
yes.
yeah.
The answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? It's very good discussion.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Reginald. Appreciate that presentation. So the next item on our agenda is just something else for information. The city ESG COVID recommendations. On August 13th, 2021, Community Development Department posted on Zoom Grants a request for proposals to distribute $1,811,556.42 in ESG CV funding. The RFP closed on August 27th, 2021. 5 applications were received, totaling $1,891,672. It was $80,115 more than what was available. An evaluation scoring committee met on September 8th, 2021 to evaluate and score applications. They have requested that Community Development Department summarize funding options based on overall scores and community needs. The committee will then vote on a final option. Community Development expects to announce final award amounts by September 17th, 2021. Again, that was just for information. And I don't have any additional information, but Colin, do you?
I do. And this is sort of piggybacking on the ERAP discussion, because as you know, ERAP is related to the eviction moratorium due to COVID. And we recognize that not every person is going to be able to be stopped from being evicted. We recognize that not every eviction results in people entering the homeless system. However, unfortunately, there are some people who do enter our homeless system through the eviction process. And some of the ESG COVID funds will be used for a homelessness prevention program. And we did want to share just kind of how the system is going to be using the second round of ESG COVID funds, not on a agency by agency level, but just sort of share with what we anticipated and what the community thought we needed and what we ended up getting and where we're going. So I'd like to just share that with you so you can sort of see our plan at this point. If you give me a moment, I will pull up my screen and share that with you. As soon as I can find it. Yeah. So what we anticipated, and we had a lot of conversations last fall before we had to do a substantial amendment and tell HUD what we were anticipating to spend our funding on. And based on community input, we came up with this amount available. Oh, there's a typo in there. Whoop, apologize. The amount available category here, we were anticipating 110,000 for street outreach, 486,456 for prevention, 634,000 for emergency shelter, and 453,000 for rapid rehousing, and $126,000 for administrative expenses. We put out our RFP, and our RFP came back requesting $27,000, 500 for outreach, $627,000 for homeless prevention, which is more than we anticipated, and substantially more for emergency shelter with over $1 million requested, and substantially less rapid rehousing money, and a little bit more on the admin side, but admin is capped at this 126. As you can see, we had more funds requested than were available. So when we went back and the committee decided to go through awarding, we scaled back the $80,000 that was scaled back came out of the street outreach. And we do have a unsheltered coordinating agency that's doing street outreach. And the Open Table Ministries will be doing an additional street outreach program using state ESG funds. So this was not necessarily a needed since we have those in place. The prevention was applied for at this number, and we went up, but there was more prevention than was available. So we will be having $580,491 available for homelessness prevention, which is very different than eviction prevention. This would be used for people who are most at risk of entering the homeless system. And these funds can be used to help people remain in their housing or help them to avoid homelessness and move from a place where they might be doubled up or struggling into and at risk of homelessness and move into a place that will keep them from becoming homeless and entering the homeless system. The emergency shelter system, clearly, when we talked last fall, we didn't anticipate emergency shelter still being needing congregate shelters and everything else this far into the pandemic. Obviously, here we are, and the non-congregate shelters and emergency shelter and trying to figure out a white flag program are once again in play. So this emergency shelter pot will cover additional emergency shelter expenses and a winter shelter program that'll help us during white flag this year, which is fantastic. Then our rapid rehousing dollars was substantially less, and a lot of that is due to the fact that we didn't have applications for $453,000 of rapid rehousing. So everybody who applied for rapid rehousing was fully funded on rapid rehousing. And some of that is some of the first round of rapid rehousing is still being worked through. There's additional state and city regular ESG funds that are in play for rapid rehousing, as well as continuum of care rapid rehousing funds and projects. So these are not the only funds available for rapid rehousing. That sort of explains why we didn't have as much because people are sort of feeling like they're struggling to get through the pot they have right now. And then our admin will stay the same. So that's kind of where we go and how we're planning to adapt and adjust and be ready to respond to those who need the homeless system in the months coming forward. And as Helen shared, the Community Development Department is currently working on getting contracts finalized to be on the City Council approval cycle for the October 18th City Council meeting. So with that, I will be happy to entertain any questions or answer thoughts anyone has.
Any questions for Colin? Okay. Hearing none, thank you, Colin, for that information. Well, at this time, we will move into announcements, and I'm going to take the liberty of providing the first announcement. As some of you know, I manage the community paramedic program for Durham County EMS, and since 2017, we have been working with public health to provide flu vaccine clinics for our homeless population. We didn't do them last year for obvious reasons. COVID sort of took a front seat on everything last year. But we do have an allocation of flu vaccines this year. I will be meeting with public health on Friday to start planning for how we are going to get these vaccines out, the flu vaccines out to our homeless population. So if you have a location that serves the homeless and it could support a flu vaccine clinic, please let me know. Obviously, we're going to reach out to places that we usually do, such as the Urban Ministries and Durham Rescue Mission and Open Table Ministries. But if you have another location that could benefit from a flu vaccine clinic, let me know and we will do our best to include you in that. Does anyone have any additional announcements?
I do. Hello, everyone. This is Ruby from Community Development. If you are a COC member and you would like to join our standing committees, policy and planning, and performance management as a COC liaison, please complete the form online at the durhamcoc.org website. I also sent out an email. I will send out another reminder. Today is the deadline. COC liaisons will be approved at the next HSAC exec committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Shana, I saw your comment. I will definitely do that. And Colin, yes, we did. We did appoint this committee.
Madam Chair, this is Lloyd Schmeidler with the CDD staff. I also have an announcement, please.
Go ahead, Lloyd.
Let me lower my hand first. The department is in the midst of preparing the Continuum of Care Homeless Grants Competition application. The consolidated application this year has a lot of new questions that we need community input to address. And we've scheduled a series of community input meetings for this same time period, 3 to 4:30 p.m. And those meetings will begin happening every other week. We're not going to preempt the HSAC meeting, but starting next week, we hope to have those meetings take place every other week, and all COC members, including HSAC members, will be invited to participate and provide input. We need the COC membership to help us develop a strong collaborative application. The collaborative application is scored by HUD and goes a long way to determine how much funding Durham actually does receive in this annual competition. So we're hopeful to get potentially 1 or 2 new projects this year. A lot of that will depend on the strength of our collaborative application. So we encourage HSAC members who have the time. You don't necessarily need to come to all 4 meetings, but to come when you can and provide input to the discussion would be most helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. Any additional announcements? Dr. Birch, I see your comment about COVID variants and vaccines. What's
Yes, excuse me, I was trying to put it in the chat. Unlike Sharita, I can't multitask very well. But tonight we are having a panel discussion with Dr. Julius Wilder from Duke on the COVID variants and vaccines. And I put the link in the chat. So if anyone wants to join and listen, it'll be at 7:00 p.m. this evening.
Across the country, and in 6 months from now and a year from now, then it's on stay.
any other announcements? I will also note, Commissioner Carter noted in the chat that she'd reached out to Janine Gordon for information about how many months the ERAP funding helps residents. And Janine sent that the ERAP funding covers up to 12 months in arrears. They can also pay 3 additional months in forward rent for a total of 15 months of assistance total, either arrears or forward. So just wanted to make sure all of y'all got that information. Well, if there are no additional announcements, I would remind you all that our next HSAC meeting is October 27th, 2021. Thank you all for a very interesting and informative meeting today. And I will call this meeting adjourned. Or do I have a motion to adjourn and then a second?
So moved.
Thank
you.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to second, and if you don't want to stay, then